Well, first of all, the government takes this very seriously, and I can understand that your viewers and you will be concerned about this new variant. That's why we've introduced a range of new restrictions already, which we think are proportionate, for example, in relation to travel and in relation to mask wearing. That's while we analyse the virus, and that's happening, for example, at Porton Down now. But in the meantime, the message to people, I think, is fairly straightforward, which is keep calm, carry on with your Christmas plans. We've put the necessary restrictions in place, but beyond that, keep calm and carry on.
It's interesting you say carry on with your Christmas plans. This is exactly what the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's also saying go ahead with your Christmas parties if you so wish. But actually, Jenny Harris, who's of course the head of the UK Health Security Agency, says that people should cut back on unnecessary socialising over the festive period. But on the other hand, the Prime Minister's saying go ahead and party on. So it seems that you're out of step then with what the scientists are saying.
Well, all of our advice is based on scientific evidence, and indeed the Chief Medical Officer and the Chief Scientific Advisor attends Cabinet and was at Cabinet when we discussed this earlier this week. That's why we've gone for this balanced and proportionate set of measures. So it is the case that, unlike previously in England, people will have to wear masks on public transport and they'll have to wear masks in retail settings. We've very much tightened up the border restrictions. But beyond that, we believe that those are necessary and appropriate steps, but beyond that, people can carry on with their plans as before. So I would say to people, just keep calm, carry on with your Christmas plans as already set out.
But this morning, we're just learning that actually quite a large number of organisations, a few, are cancelling their plans. So people are not listening to what you're saying. Do you think that people are just not trusting what you're saying? They just don't have much confidence in what you're saying. So some of the people we're hearing, University College London, NHS Trusts, Age UK, these are all organisations, government departments that have cancelled their Christmas parties, despite the fact that you're saying carry on.
Well, I understand that people have concerns around the new variant. That's why the government has taken the sort of measures that we've already outlined. But beyond that, as the Prime Minister has been at pains to say several times and said again yesterday, and I'm very happy to repeat again this morning, we think those are sufficient at this stage, and beyond that, people should continue with their plans as intended. We've always said that we want people to have a better Christmas than they had last year. We're confident they're able to do so. But the reason people are able to do so is because of this vaccine. So the one thing that everyone can do, if they're worried, is to make sure that they take that booster, that they make sure that they top up their immunity. And for example, the results out this morning are very promising about the effects of that booster. They vindicate the decision taken by the government to invest in buying those doses of Pfizer and Moderna. So provided people take the booster when they get the call, provided they abide by the existing rules as updated in light of the new variant, I think people can continue with their Christmas plans, and I'd encourage people to do so.
Well, talking about the fact that a number of government organisations have decided to cancel their Christmas party, this is certainly having a knock-on effect financially on the hospitality industry, which is already taking a huge battering during this pandemic. Are you going to provide any support for them during this winter month?
Well, we've already provided a huge amount of
more for
support.
them?
Well, I think that the support that we've outlined, and by the way, some of that support is ongoing still, for example, in relation to business rates. Businesses are still benefiting from that. Beyond that, we have not changed the advice around people taking part in hospitality, so going to the pub, going to restaurants and so on. And actually, I think most pubs and restaurants up until very recently have been doing very well during this season, and we're not discouraging people from continuing to do so.
But they are going to take a hit, though. If a lot of people are cancelling their Christmas, plans, they will be taking a huge hit. A lot of people had been relying on this Christmas festive season to make up some of the losses that they've made over the years. So will you provide extra support for them during this Christmas period?
Well, let's wait and see how we do over the Christmas period, because the government's position remains that people should carry on with their Christmas plans. And I understand why your viewers and why people up and down the country will be concerned about this new variant. I want to reassure people that that is why we have taken the measures in relation to travel. That's why we've tightened some of the rules around mask wearing, but why we're taking a proportionate approach whilst we consider the effects of this variant. And by that I mean that the Porton Down and others are examining this virus to understand exactly its implications. Whilst that's going on, we believe these are appropriate steps they're sufficient for now to enable people to continue with their Christmas plans as before.
OK, now we're just hearing of families who are being stranded in South Africa. Obviously, it's on the red list country, and this is because there are not enough hotel rooms for them to quarantine in when they reach the UK. So it looks like a lot of people will be spending their Christmases in those Southern African countries, which you have put on the red lists. And it appears that you put the restrictions in place overnight, but you didn't readjust or look out for the capacity for the existing infrastructure plan.
Well, we do have to take the risks associated with this new variant seriously. And I don't want to impose any restrictions. The government doesn't want to impose any more restrictions than necessary. But because of the origins of this virus in Southern Africa, we had to move rapidly to impose those restrictions on Southern Africa. That's why we did it immediately. Of course, we'll make sure that the appropriate facilities are in place for people. But the reason why we did that, and this whole strategy is about making sure that we limit the spread of the Omicron variant at this stage whilst we look at the effects of it, which in turn enables me to be able to say that people can keep calm and carry on with their Christmas plans because we're taking tough measures in relation to the virus coming into the country through at-risk countries.
So will you have enough rooms available then if people in Southern Africa are wanting to come here and to isolate in hotels? Will there be enough hotel rooms for them?
Well, of course, there's a difference between nationals of Southern African countries who are not allowed to come here, UK nationals who are returning. Yes, of course, we'll make sure that we have appropriate provisions.
So those people who are stranded, we can say to them, come home, it's absolutely fine. The minister says there will be enough rooms for you.
Yeah, so what I say to those people is clearly they have to abide by the new rules, which means that when they return, they have to immediately hotel quarantine. They have to have their PCR on day 2 and day 8. And of course, we will make sure that there are appropriate hotel quarantine facilities in place. We ramped those up last time and we'll make sure we continue to do so. OK, well, let's step away from COVID and let's talk about the by-election which is taking place in Old Bexley and Sidcup there. 10% swing to Labour. Now, this is supposed to be a safe Tory seat. 10% is nothing to be sniffed at. Well, look, this is a good result for a governing party midterm. As you well know, governing parties shouldn't expect to do well midterm. We actually secured over 50% of the vote in Bexley. And I pay tribute to our excellent candidate and the campaign team there that secured that result. This idea that Labour have made some surge ahead is really for the birds. They've actually got about the same vote share as they secured under Jeremy Corbyn in 2017. And Keir Starmer couldn't even be bothered to turn up to the by-election. So I'm really not terribly worried about Labour.
But the fact is they did make some gains there. And one of the things that kept coming up was the allegations of sleaze, which is what kept coming up on the doorstep. Do you think that that's something that's had a bit of a knock-on effect on your numbers?
Well, of course, people have concerns mid-term with any government's performance. And of course, people have been concerned about what's happened over the past couple of months. But I actually think it's tribute, contrary to a lot of expectations, to the campaign that has been fought by Louis French, by the excellent team down there, that we secured 50% of the vote. Now, what I take from that is that the government has to focus and get on with delivery. That's why, for example, just next week we'll be taking action to address one of people's concerns around small boats with a new nationality and borders legislation that will come before Parliament again. And I very much hope that Labour and the Liberal Democrats will actually support that legislation because it's essential to tackle this problem.
The turnout was very low, wasn't it? It was only 34%.
Yes, I mean, it is the case that in by-elections, turnout tends to be low, but against that backdrop, we managed to secure 50%. And I really want to thank the people of Bexley for putting their faith in Louis and putting their faith in the government.
Let's talk about the French Prime Minister then rejecting Boris Johnson's call for joint UK-French patrols in the Channel. We have a crisis here, don't we? And the two people who should be coming together to solve this are just not getting along. Where do we go from here?
Well, there's two elements. First of all, we need to get our laws in the right place. So they're not currently fit for purpose, and that's why we're bringing forward the Nationality and Borders Bill, for example, which will increase to a maximum life sentence for those vile people traffickers who are exploiting vulnerable people crossing from one safe country, France, to another safe country, the UK. It has a range of other measures, for example, in relation to increasing the sanctions for illegally entering the UK. So it's essential we get that through, and it's essential, by the way, we get support from other parties for that when that comes before Parliament next week. We also have to have international cooperation. Now, the Home Secretary is already, this week, has been meeting, I believe, with her Dutch counterparts and with her Italian counterparts to stop this flow of migration. And we continue to cooperate with the French. We cooperate with the French in many different ways, including in NATO, in relation to joint intelligence operations. So there's a lot of Anglo-French cooperation going on. And actually, if you look, we have managed through that cooperation to stop 20,000 boats crossing the Channel. I hope that cooperation will continue.
Do you think that the allegations of sleaze and also the crisis that we're seeing over the migrants issue in the Channel will haunt you when it comes to the next election, general election?
Well, I think it's essential that we address the challenge of migrants, the small boats, but that is precisely why we're bringing forward this legislation to toughen up our laws next week. So the challenge is, will other parties support us in that legislation? Will the Liberal Democrats and Labour support us in that legislation when it comes before Parliament next week?